Today we continue on our NHL GM report card series. We're working our way through now the teams in the Central Division. Today we look at the Chicago Blackhawks and general manager Kyle Davidson. They were very busy in free agency, signing lots of their own young players and bringing in lots of new faces as well. We'll discuss their moves and grade their work coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have another video here in the GM Report Card series today looking at the Chicago Blackhawks. This is the final division. We're getting to the last bit of the teams here. Once this series is done, we're going to kick off our season previews, which will likely get started sometime in the next 5 or 6 days. So stay tuned for that series coming up here very shortly. But first, we're going to look at Chicago and analyze the work of GM Kyle Davidson. We're going to look at the trades, internal re-signings, as well as all the moves they made in free agency, analyze how the team has changed and grade their work. So looking at the trades for Kyle Davidson and the Blackhawks, there wasn't a lot, but there was a couple of significant ones, especially around the draft. They made a deal early on with the New York Islanders a few days before the draft, picking up draft picks number 18 and 50 from the New York Islanders in exchange for pick 20, 54, and 61. So essentially they moved up 2 spots from that second first round pick that they had to go from 20 to 18, and then their second rounder, they were able to move up 4 spots, and to do all that, they gave up an extra pick 61 for the Islanders. The Islanders, to me, the deal didn't make a ton of sense for them. I thought it was a good piece of work by Kyle Davidson. I mean, the Islanders get the extra pick at the end of the second round, and the Islanders are a team that's needing to add more prospects. Their prospect pool is pretty thin. So I understand the move, but I think they could have squeezed out a little bit more value considering the picks involved. So from Chicago's standpoint, I thought he did well. Of course, they took Arnold off with their first pick, number 2, but then with this 20th overall selection that they traded, they get number 18 and they take Sasha Beauvoir. So after getting the pick for Sasha Beauvoir, they also made another trade with the Carolina Hurricanes. That trade, they picked up pick number 27 late in the first round from Carolina for pick 34 and 50. Of course, that pick 50 that they got from the New York Islanders. So they ended up taking the picks that they had, and they ended up walking into the first round with 3 picks. So it was a good piece of work by Kyle Davidson. I know a couple of years back he did the same thing, except he went into the draft with no first rounders and walked out with 3. So they leave there with the first round with Lovshunov, Beauvoir, and Vanacker. So they made some good moves, and I will give them good credit for those draft day trades. Now they also picked up Ilya Mikheyev and Sam Lafferty as well from the Vancouver Canucks, a pure cap dump from Vancouver. They got themselves an extra second-round pick in 2027 for their efforts, and in exchange, they give up a 2027 fourth-rounder. So they give up a fourth, but they get a second. They get Mikheyev and Lafferty. Lafferty was a pending UFA. That was just his rights, and they did not sign him, so he walks away as a free agent. So instead, they basically get Ilya Mikheyev, and then they get an upgraded pick for their efforts for taking him off the books of the Vancouver Canucks. So again, I don't mind Mikheyev, not a lot of term left there. Hopefully he can bounce back and have a better finish so they can get some value out of him to trade him again later on. So those were the trades. A couple of trades of the draft to pick up Mikheyev and Lafferty as a cap dump. Mostly Mikheyev really because Lafferty was just signing rights and they did not put that to good use and keep them. On the signing side of things, they have said they had lots of their own players, mostly young guys that got signed internally, and then they were very busy externally on July 1 and afterwards getting lots of new names to come into the organization. So internally, they had their biggest contract was young defenseman Alex Vlasic. Vlasic, it's a 6-year contract at $4.6 million per season. Based on what they've seen from Vlasic so far, I don't have any problem with this. It is a little bit of a bet and a gamble for any young player coming out of their ELC to get a longer term deal, but for $4.6 million, it should be fine. If anything, in a couple of years, it probably could look pretty pretty much a steal. It has that potential, right? So we'll see, but I have no issue with the contract. Otherwise, it was all shorter term stuff. Lukas Reichel, 2 years at $1.2 million. Lukas Reichel has yet to really take off and really hit his stride. Joey Anderson, 2 years at $800K. Cole Gutman a year at league minimum, and of course Levshunov and Vanek both signed their entry-level contracts not long after the NHL draft. Now externally, as I mentioned, in free agency, they did do a lot of work as well. They signed several veteran players to come in and insulate these young guys and take the pressure off them of having to play big NHL minutes early in their careers or right away. They signed Craig Smith, a 1-year deal at $1 million, no problem there. Pat Maroon, 1 year at 1.3. He certainly brings a level of experience, Stanley Cups, and a level of toughness and intimidation to the lineup to protect the young guys. So certainly have no problem there. Laurent Brossoit comes over to back up Peter Mrazek. Comes over from Vegas and Winnipeg. 2 years at 3.3. The last few years, like he split last year with the Jets. Before that was in with Vegas. He's had his injury issues, and he's already has an injury as well. Had to have a knee procedure done for, I think it was a meniscus issue, so he's going to likely miss the start of the year as well. They bring in TJ Brodie, UFA from Toronto, 2 years at 3.75. That might be a little bit of an overpayment, but Chicago can afford to overpay right now. They have lots of salary cap space, and some of these veteran players, that's how they're getting them to come to Chicago, is they're outbidding other teams. And right now, they can afford to do that, and they're just trying to make this team more competitive right now, and they're also trying to insulate the young guys. So normally, I would really critique that Brodie contract, but at the same time, I think it's a unique situation there in Chicago, we'll say. Alec Martinez comes over from Vegas, 1 year and $4 million. They signed Tara Vinen out of Carolina, 3 years of 5.4. And Tyler Bertuzzi comes over also from the Leafs, 4 years at 5.5. So for Bertuzzi and Tara Vinen, the way they've played and produced the last number of years, those contracts should be pretty reasonable. Should be. They likely will get an opportunity to play a lot with Connor Bedard because they will be outside of Taylor Hall. Hall, along with Bertuzzi and Teravainen, will definitely be their top 3 experienced, productive wingers. You'll obviously have an opportunity for maybe either Lucas Reichel or Philip Kurashev to probably grab that other spot in the top 6. But generally speaking, they're going to play top line. They're going to give you probably 20 goals, 50 points. They've been pretty consistent throughout their careers. For the money that they're getting paid, I don't have an issue with it. I honestly think the only contract that was a little bit much was TJ Brodie. But I understand why they went the way they did with that. They're also overpaying Nick Foligno and Peter Mrazek. Both of those guys extended in January when they were eligible. They're both making way more money in Chicago than they would anywhere else by a large margin. So to summarize the addition and subtraction for the Blackhawks, coming in as new faces, we have Laurent Brossoit, Craig Smith, Pat Maroon, TJ Brodie, Alec Martinez, Teuvo Teravainen, and Tyler Bertuzzi. Going out, you've got Tyler Johnson not returning, Taylor Radish, Mackenzie Entwistle, Nikita Zaitsev. So are the players coming in improvement over the ones going out? I think we can absolutely say yes. Like I said, you're probably looking at your top 6 of being Bedard, Bertuzzi, Teravainen, Hall, Athanasiou, maybe Kurashev in there. A third line could be a veteran line with Dickinson, Foligno and Mikheyev maybe. Reichel, Donato, Smith perhaps makes up your fourth line. You've got Pat Maroon in there as well. Maroon will get in a spot as well. Guys like Craig Smith, Lucas Reichel might not even play regularly. To be honest, I wouldn't be shocked if Lucas Reichel was traded. As I said, so far, he hasn't lived up to expectations, and I do wonder if a swap for another prospect to get a new scenery, somebody in a similar predicament, might not be a terrible idea. On the back end, you've got Vlasic and Jones probably, Murphy, Korchinski, Martinez, and Brodie. Of course, Levshunov did sign. I would suspect he's probably going to go to the American Hockey League, though. Just kind of analyzing all the positions here. Is goaltending better? I think you can say it is. Brossoit adds a lot more, another level of experience and depth. Mrazek did okay for them, so I think it's fair to say their goaltender is deeper and a little bit better. On the back end, I think it's definitely fair to say that they have more experience back there for sure. I mean, you add Brodie and Martinez. That's a lot of games played and a lot of defensive play. So, in theory, it takes the pressure off the young guys. and it should allow them to be a bit better defensively. Up front, they definitely get better for sure. The top six is certainly a little bit stronger with Bertuzzi and Teravainen. Mikheyev adds some speed if he can play up to that level like he used to. Pat Maroon brings a level of experience and toughness and experience, cup pedigree, all that stuff for him. At the end of the day, I think if you look at what's gone out versus what's come in, pretty much all aspects of their team have improved. And that may not be by leaps and bounds. I don't expect the Blackhawks to be in contention for playoffs, but I also think they've improved enough that they may not be the bottom 2 or 3 teams either. I think this team should take some steps this year. They've added a lot of prospects. Connor Bedard will go into year 2 of his career. The guys they added, like I said, will add a nice level of insulation so that the young guys will not be pressured to be put in situations they're not ready to handle. So I'm going to give Kyle Davidson a grade of a B. I think he did pretty good work this offseason. They had to overpay in some cases, but it's to bring in the veterans while they have the space, and they still have $6.6 billion in space. So it's not like they're maxed right out. They can still weaponize some existing space to try to take advantage of teams and bring in, other players for extra assets or whatnot. They've had enough high picks now that I think they're ready to try turning the corner. It doesn't mean that they're not going to get another high pick this year. It may not be 2 or 3. Maybe it's, 5, 6, 7, but I think they'll probably move up the standings at least a bit, and the veterans that they brought in, I think, will teach the young guys about leading and winning and set a good culture there, and this takes the pressure off the young guys as well. So overall, I like the work of Kyle Davidson. I think they're trending here in the right direction. They've been able to add lots of first-round picks, lots of draft picks, so they're able to build that pipeline and a prospect pool. And then they have the veterans there to insulate them for the short term while they're developing. So all in all, I think it's a job well done. So let me know what you think in the comment section. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.